Here is episode 26 of The Flame of Niru, an African folktale epic in prose. Episode 26, The Day the Ancestors Danced. They say there comes a day in every village's life that feels like a dream. In Iduama, that day came when the ancestors danced. It began with a gentle tremor in the earth, so soft it seemed like breath beneath the soil. Then came the scent of burnt kola nuts and ancient rain, the kind that hadn't fallen in 100 seasons. The flame of Niru flickered gold and violet, then turned a deep, vibrant blue, a color none had seen before. Greater than what does it mean? A child asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Greater than it means the veil is lifting, Abeni said. And those who came before are ready. That night, under a sky spilled with stars, the villagers gathered again beneath the moon tree. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The wind began to hum. Then sing. Then chant. And suddenly, they appeared. The ancestors. Not as ghosts. Not as shadows. But as light in human shape, moving with the rhythm of drums Noham played. Tund saw his grandfather tall and proud, with cowries in his beard and a staff carved from lionwood. Greater than do not fear, the old man said, voice gentle. We come not to haunt but to remember with you. They danced. The ancestors and the living. Together. In circles of memory and joy. Each footfall echoed like thunder softened by love. Children giggled as long-lost great-grandmothers wove invisible thread around their wrists, protection charms made from laughter. Eric the Keeper stepped forward with her scroll of quiet names. One by one, she called them. And for each name, an ancestor stepped into the light, took a final turn in the circle, and faded gently into the wind. Greater than the forgotten are no longer forgotten, she whispered. They are free. At dawn, only the flame of Niru remained. But its glow now held all colors. Gold. Violet. Blue. And a new shade, silver-white, the color of peace that lingers. The people of Iduama did not weep. They smiled. They cooked. They danced once more. And they told their children, greater than once, the ancestors danced with us. And one day, so shall we. Here is episode 27 of The Flame of Niru, an African folktale epic in prose. Episode 27, The Return of the Silent Drummer. The morning after the ancestors danced, the village of Iduama felt still. Not empty. Not silent. But sacredly quiet, like the air before a newborn's first cry. Even the flame of Niru, which had glowed through the night with every color of remembrance, now rested gently in its gourd content, not dimmed. That was when the drumbeat returned. Just one. Deep. Ancient. Slow. Boom. It came not from any of the drummers. Not from the children at play. It came from the shrine of the fallen, the place where drums were once broken, their players buried without song. And standing there was a man no one remembered by name, but every soul knew, the silent drummer. He had lived long ago, during the time of the broken rain, when singing was forbidden and speaking of ancestors meant punishment. They say he once drummed in secret under the earth. And when he was discovered, his hands were bound, and his drum buried beneath the roots of the moon tree. But now had returned. Not in vengeance. But in rhythm. Abeni and Tund approached him, cautious but respectful. The man wore no crown. No jewelry. Only old beads made of ashes and bone, and a cloth wrapped in stories woven by the wind. Greater than you came back, Abeni whispered. Greater than the silent drummer looked at her. Then nodded once, and struck the drum again. Boom! This time, the earth answered. From across the valley, hidden drums began to echo. Old ones. Buried in caves. Forgotten in trees. They called out to Iduama. A signal. A summoning greater than the drums are awakening, said Eric, her eyes gleaming. The world remembers. And now the silenced will be heard. That evening, the silent drummer stood before the flame of Nuru and played. Not loudly, but honestly. Each beat told the story of one lost tongue, one buried voice, one truth stolen by fear. And as the villagers listened, they realized, greater than they knew the rhythm. They had carried it in their bones all along. So they joined him. First the children. Then the women. Then the old man with trembling hands. Together, they formed a circle. Not of power, but of presence. A voice reclaimed. And the flame of New repulsed once more. Not in mourning, but in celebration. Because even the silent, in time, will sing again. Here is episode 29 of The Flame of Nuru, an African folktale epic in prose. Episode 29, The Rain That Sang Names in Iduama. The skies had remained dry for nearly 3 full cycles of the moon. Not from drought, but from reverence. The land itself was holding its breath, listening to the stories being reborn in fire, drum, and dance. But on the morning after Tund received the flame from Eric, the wind shifted. It came warm and slow, carrying the scent of palm wine and crushed hibiscus. Children ran to the edge of the village, their eyes wide. Clouds were gathering. But these were no ordinary clouds. They moved with rhythm. They pulsed to a beat no ears could fully hear. They shimmered faintly with ancestral colors. And then the first drop fell. It struck the center of the flame gourd and vanished with a soft hiss. Then another. And another. And suddenly, the sky wept. But this was not ordinary rain. This rain sang. As each drop struck the earth, it whispered a name. A name of someone once forgotten. Of someone once feared. Of someone once hidden in silence. The villagers stood barefoot, arms raised, weeping and laughing as names long buried washed over them in sacred melody. Greater than Oniaka. Aruoma. Ikena. Mojasala. Even Eric wept, for the rain was calling names she had never dared to speak aloud. Tund stood with the flame in his hands, the pot glowing with every name uttered. The rain did not put the fire out. Instead, the fire rose higher, dancing within the drops, turning into a river of memory that flowed from the shrine to the fields to the very borders of Iduama. Greater than this is not just rain, Abeni whispered. It is remembrance, return to the land. Old trees bloomed with flowers no one had seen in generations. The river, once sluggish, now bubbled with laughter. And the stones in the elder square glowed faintly with carved marks once thought eroded. Even the dead rejoiced. Their spirits, dancing in the shimmer of rainlight, lifted skyward, humming. By sunset, the clouds parted. But every path in Iduama was washed clean. Not of mud but of forgetfulness. The villagers gathered once more beneath the moon tree. Tund lit the flame anew and said, Greater than the names have returned. The land remembers. And now, so must we. That night, no one slept. Because in every dream, the rain still sang. And every heart felt whole. Here is episode 30, the final chapter of The Flame of Nuru, an African folktale epic in prose. Episode 30, the new flame rise dawn came slowly to Iduama, like an elder storyteller pausing at the end of a long tale. The rain had ended. The flame of Nuru still flickered, steady and strong. But everyone knew something had shifted. Something had ended. And something else, something bright and unfamiliar, was about to begin. At the village square, the people gathered once more beneath the moon tree. A great hush fell over them. Eric the keeper stood beside Tund, now holding the flame not as a student, but as a bearer of truth. Abeni, radiant as a morning sun, stepped forward with a folded cloth of red and gold. Inside it was a single spark. Greater than this is the seed flame, she said. Taken from the fire that remembered. Meant for what is yet to be born. She turned to the villagers. Greater than the time of keeping is done. Now is the time of creating. One by one, the elders stepped forward with bowls of earth from different corners of the village, from the river banks of Omu, where fish once sang. From the hills of Yuzo, where the wind was carved into stone. From the forest of Well, where spirits taught trees how to dance. They poured the earth into a wide circle around the moon tree. Tund knelt in the center. He placed the flame of Nuru into a small clay lantern and pressed it into the soil. Then, with a deep breath, he took the seed flame from Abeni and lit a second fire. This new fire crackled not with memory, but with vision. It blazed white gold, its smoke spiraling upward in the shape of a phoenix. Greater than this flame, Tund said, is not to look back. It is to light the path ahead. Not just for Iduama, but for all the forgotten villages. For all the names yet unborn. For all the stories still waiting to be told. And then the people knelt. Children placed small charms into the soil. The youth sang. The elders hummed. And as the sun rose fully above the horizon, it struck the new flame, and for a moment, the entire village glowed. Not from fire. Not from magic. But from unity. From the truth that had been reclaimed. The flame of Nuru was now two, one to guard the past. One to guide the future. And between them stood the people. Alive. Awake. Home. The Ngbatasal Griots know greater than every flame leaves behind a spark. And every story becomes another. Here is episode 28 of The Flame of Nuru*, an African folktale epic in prose. Episode 28, The Oracle Beneath the Thorn Tree. After the drums of the silent were heard again, and the flame of Nuru shimmered with steady joy, a message came from the east, carried by a hawk with silver feathers and eyes like dew. It circled thrice above Iduama before landing at the feet of Eric, the keeper of quiet names. Tied to its leg was a strip of bark, scorched at the edges. On it were only 5 words, greater than the oracle stirs. Come now. Eric read it in silence, then looked toward the thorn tree, a place no one spoke of anymore. The thorn tree stood at the edge of Ijira Grove, where no birds sang, and even spirits whispered with care. Long ago, it had been the seat of the first oracle, a being neither man nor woman, neither alive nor dead, who only spoke when time itself bent in pain. Many believed the oracle had vanished when the river of truth dried. But others like Eric knew it was merely sleeping. Waiting. And now it was waking. Eric, Tund, Abeni, and 3 elders made the journey at dawn, guided by the hawk. They carried nothing but the flame, kept low in a small clay pot. As they entered Ijira Grove, time began to tremble. The air thickened. The trees leaned in. The wind grew still. At the base of the massive, thorn-wrapped tree, the earth had cracked open like a mouth. From its depths came a voice that sounded like broken mirrors and rushing rivers all at once. Greater than the line is breaking. Abeni stepped forward, hand over her heart. Greater than which line, spirit? What must we mend? Silence. Then, a gust of black smoke rose from the tree's hollow, forming the shape of a woman made entirely of bark and stars. Her face held no features, but her presence pressed against every soul like thunder. Greater than the old names have been sung, she said. But one name has not yet been claimed. Greater than whose name? Tund asked. Greater than yours. She replied. The oracle raised a hand, and vines parted to reveal a mirror made of firelight. In its reflection, Tund saw not himself, but his spirit, braided with the hopes of his ancestors and the sorrows of those unborn. Greater than you are the keeper now, the oracle said. Not of memory, but of balance. The drums of the forgotten must never drown the voices of the now. Tun bowed his head. He did not speak. He understood. The oracle faded. The thorn tree pulsed once. And then the earth closed. As they returned to Iduama, Eric placed the clay pot holding the flame into Tun's arms. "Greater than you carry not a burden," she said. "You carry a bridge." That night, the sky opened in stars. And a single thorn blossom bloomed for the first time in 100 years. The oracle had spoken. And balance had begun to return.